Hey guys! So today I thought I would film an updated eyeshadow palette collection video. It's been about a year since my last one, so I like to do this once a year just to kind of give you an overview of all of my palettes, what I like and dislike about each one. I'll give you kind of a mini review, swatches on all of them, so let's get right into it. I figured we would divide this by drugstore and high-end, so let's start with the drugstore palettes. And we'll just get started over here. So I have 3 BH Cosmetics palettes. BH Cosmetics makes my favorite drugstore eyeshadow formula. We'll start with this one. This is Summer in Saint-Tropez in the old packaging. This is honestly like my ideal colorful palette because it's got a great mix of bright shades and muted shades, mattes and shimmers, and there's also a few slightly more neutral colors to sort of ground the palette. You can really do a lot with this one. I did a 1-month 1 palette on this a while ago. In fact, for all these palettes, I'll go ahead and link below any videos that I've done using the palette or dedicated to the palette so you can see them in action, but this is such a good palette. I've only had it since the spring of this year and I've already hit pan on sand. Yeah, I feel like it's a very easy palette to pull a look from. Even though it's colorful, for some reason I still feel like it's in my comfort zone. So really, really enjoy that and highly recommend it. They have since repackaged it and renamed the shades, but I'm pretty sure they're all the same still. Next, I have Lost in Los Angeles from BH Cosmetics. This one is a little bit newer to me, and this one is really dedicated to a lot of these more pastel colors. This palette really doesn't go very deep. You've got a few mid-tone shades, but it's really largely very light and pastel. The quality of these is amazing, you know, typical for BH Cosmetics. I love that it's a mix of matte and shimmer again. The only thing I've noticed with this one is I feel like it's not the most cohesive. It's a little bit trickier to pick out shades to pair together. The shades are all kind of just randomly scattered in here, and I feel like there's not much of a rhyme or reason to how they're arranged. I feel like this is honestly more of like a companion palette to my collection. I do find it a little bit difficult to create one look with just this, even though I have done that, but I do think it's got a great selection of beautiful and unique colors that I'm happy to have in my collection. So really like that. And then I have the BH Mimosa palette. This one is very bright and it's got a lot of pinks and corals in it. Again, another great mix of matte and shimmer. And I feel like this is going to be a favorite for me in like the spring and summer because these are the kinds of tones I like to reach for during that time of year. Even though a lot of the shades are in this kind of bright pinky coral color family, I do feel like there's no like redundant shades in here. But I mean, if you're not a fan of like hot, bright pinks and corals, you probably want to skip this one because that is like half those shades. My only critique of this one is I wish it had more oranges in it because it really only has 1 orange. I just love orange eyeshadow, and I feel like it would make sense to have maybe, you know, a couple more oranges in there since it is called the Mimosa palette, and mimosas are usually orange, but I still think this is really bright and fun and summery. It just puts me in a good mood to even look at it. So love that one. Quality is very consistent across all 3 of these. So highly recommend any of at least their 16 pan palettes. These are the only ones I've tried so far, but I love them all. So next I have 3 palettes from Profusion Cosmetics. The first one, this is the one I've had the longest. This is the Mauves. And this is another very kind of monochromatic palette. I love this for the fall and winter, even into like Valentine's Day time. I know that's very specific, but I feel like it's really pretty for that time of year as well. This is my favorite quality-wise of the Profusion palettes that I've tried so far. I mean, these really aren't just good for the price, they're just really good. Especially the shimmers in here, I love. They're so creamy and just foiled and beautiful. The mattes perform well too. Yeah, I really enjoy this palette. I have no issues with color payoff or anything, so highly recommend that. The packaging kind of sucks. All these 10 pans, the like letters and the border starts to wear off very quickly, but I mean, that doesn't bother me too much. And then this one I picked up really not long ago, and you can already see it's started to wear off quite a bit already. This is the Pastel palette. This one released very recently, and this is an all matte palette. There are no true shimmers in here, although half of the shades are mattes with kind of glitter mixed in, which I'm not a huge fan of. Honestly, I kind of have realized I'm not that into all matte palettes in general. Any palette that's all matte I don't tend to enjoy, especially from Profusion, because I really think their shimmer formula is what they do best. And so I'm not totally wowed by this palette, but I do think it is nice for the price if you're wanting to add some fun pastel colors to your collection. I really like this shade called Alive. It's beautiful, like springy yellow green. I would say though, you do need to have some kind of white, like cream shadow base underneath these, like the NYX Jumbo Pencil in Milk or something similar, to get them to really show up, because they are quite sheer on their own and they can kind of blend away. You can work with them without a white base, but I would say you're going to have the best luck with some kind of white base. Next, I have my E.L.F. Earth and Ocean palette. I have loved this palette for probably over 2 years now, I think. It is missing one shade. My friend actually decluttered this palette to me, and I'm guessing this one was missing like when she got it too. There's a little bit left around the edges that I'm still able to use, but in case you're wondering about that, that's like the really, you can see it here. It's like a silvery sort of topper shade. But I love this palette. I have not stopped raving about it ever since I got it. It's a great mix of kind of blue tones and then some greens and earthy tones on the other side. I just feel like this palette is so versatile, so unique. I don't have anything else like this in my collection. So many of these shades are shades I don't have in other palettes, and I just think it's a gem. It really is a gem. Out of the E.L.F. 18 pan palettes that I've tried, this is my favorite. It's the only one that I've kept. I did used to have Opposites Attract and New Classics, but I have decluttered both of those. I just think this one really outshines those in terms of quality and just in terms of like the color story itself. I just think it's very fun and different. So yeah, really can't recommend this highly enough if you are into these kinds of tones. All right, then I've got two ColourPop palettes. First I have Miss Bliss, another monochromatic palette. You know, I'm realizing most of my drugstore palettes would be classified as colorful. I don't have that many neutral palettes just because I feel like once I have a few good staple neutral palettes, I don't really need that many more. But anyway, this is gorgeous. It is a like peach and pink color story. I think one of you guys told me these shades have been put in out of order. They are magnetic, and I have dropped this palette a couple times and had to pop shades back in. And they're all out of order now, so just ignore that. But it's kind of fun though that you can rearrange these. You could even like mix and match with other 9 pans, although these pans are smaller than the ColourPop single magnetic shadows that you can buy individually, so just keep that in mind. You can't pop those into here, in case you were wondering, but the quality of this one really blew me away. They're all very kind of light and pastel shades, but they really show up nicely. I don't feel like I need like a white base underneath. They show up just fine on their own, and I always get such a fun and like light and springy look with this. I think it's beautiful. Especially in the springtime, that's when I really get into this palette. The only shade that I don't like or use is the pressed glitter. I just don't use pressed glitters on my eyes, but other than that, it's a beautiful, beautiful palette. Then I have In a Trance, which was actually also decluttered to me by the same friend that gifted me the E.L.F. Earth and Ocean palette. And this is another one from the same kind of like collection, I guess, as Miss Bliss. And this is a really pretty kind of bluey purpley palette. Again, predominantly pastel. 3 of the shades in here are actually kind of like a ColourPop Super Shock formula: Clarity, Mind's Eye, and Crown Chakra. I honestly don't use this one as much as Miss Bliss just because I don't always go for like purples and blues on my eyes, but I do think it's really pretty when I'm in the mood for that. And I've also found that this and E.L.F. Earth and Ocean go together really pretty if you're wanting like a bluey purple kind of galactic look. So fun. Again, it does have a pressed glitter, so just be warned if you're not into those, but really fun palette. I think you can still buy both of these. All right, and then here I have the Flower Beauty Jungle Lights palette. This is so pretty. It is an all shimmer palette. These are all kind of like the ColourPop Super Shock shadows, a little bit different, but they have that sort of cream powder hybrid texture, and they're all these just beautiful, very foiled metallic shades. A lot of great like one and done shadow options in here. I love just putting this shade all over my lid, maybe a little bit of this in the inner corner, or the green all over my lid. Really beautiful palette. Honestly, can't believe it's drugstore. Like, this is one of those drugstore products that really feels high-end, except I guess the packaging kind of feels drugstore, but I don't really mind that. The only shade in here I don't really use is the purple. I don't really like that shade. It's such a deep purple, and for this texture and finish of eyeshadow, I tend to stick to like light to medium tones. So that's the only shade I don't use, but you might love that kind of shade. Yeah, overall, love this palette. I'm interested in their Desert Lights palette as well. I don't know if I need it, but it does look gorgeous. I'm definitely considering it. All right, then I have another one from Profusion. This is one of their 2020, wait, what year is it? This is one of their 2021 Halloween palettes. They have this kind of whole like alien sort of collection out right now. I found this at Walgreens. I think it's a Walgreens exclusive, and you can also get it on their website. But I love this. I did a 2 looks 1 palette with this one recently, and it actually really impressed me. You can see this silver, it's kind of, I don't know if there's like any kind of oily ingredients in there, but it has kind of like seeped into the cardboard, you can kind of see. I mean, I don't know. The shadow itself performs great. I love this like lime green, the blue. I think this is just such a unique and fun color combination that I probably never would have put together myself, but I do have a lot of fun with it. And I was actually really impressed by the performance of these shadows. I wasn't expecting much. They did not swatch well at all, especially the mattes, but on the eyes they performed really nicely, and I didn't need to use a white base again with these. So I honestly really like this. If you like the color story, I recommend it. Now this does come in like a kit with an eyeliner pencil for $7. The eyeliner pencil is not very good, so I kind of just wish they would sell this on its own, but it's a great palette though. And then I've got 2 drugstore quads. First I have the CoverGirl True Naked Jet Setter. I used this in my full face of CoverGirl video earlier this year. This is a really nice, just kind of steely gray quad. I feel like it's not often that you find a quad with like just gray and cool tones in it like this. And yeah, I think they're really nice. They're not the most outstanding formula ever. I feel like the quality of these is kind of what I'd expect for CoverGirl, but you can get a really pretty look with this. I would recommend applying like the shimmers with your fingers, maybe over like the NYX glitter primer, but I really have enjoyed the looks that I've gotten out of this. These 2 shades though are kind of similar. One is matte and one is more satiny, and this one's a little bit darker, but yeah, I kind of wish these were like a little bit different from each other, but either way, I think this is a great little quad. Kind of expensive for a drugstore quad, like it's a lot more expensive than the E.L.F. bite-sized quads, which I'm about to talk about. So maybe make sure to get like a coupon or some sort of deal on these. I wouldn't recommend paying full price, but I do think it's a nice little quad. And last drugstore palette, I have the E.L.F. bite-sized quad in Rosewater. I have had to repress this twice now. These shades are very fragile and breakable, so I'm not sure if it's like that with all the bite-sized quads, but this one at least has been very breakable for me. But I do love this quad. Just a great like rosy tone, cool tone quad. I love these kinds of shades on my eyes, and it's so easy to just throw together an everyday look with this. I feel like I don't have to think very hard. I usually just pop this in my crease, one or both of these light shimmers on the lid, and then I'll use this to kind of deepen up the outer corner as a liner. It's just so easy, and the quality of this really is amazing. Yeah, I really don't think you can go wrong with the E.L.F. bite-sized quads. They're $3 a piece. If you see a color story that you like, I highly recommend these. So those are all of my drugstore palettes. Let's now get into my high-end palettes. So let's get started. Over here I do have 4 Anastasia palettes. This one is the Sultry palette, which I was able to snag in the vault that they did at the end of 2020. But this unfortunately is limited edition, and I don't think you can get it anymore. Depending on what country you live in, you might be able to find it, but this is a beautiful, very sultry glam neutral palette. I love this, especially like around the holidays. I feel like this is a great New Year's Eve palette. I love that there's a silver in here, there's a gold, there's a gray, which you don't find very often in palettes. I love this kind of bright coral. I feel like it adds a little pop of something fun to this. And yeah, overall, amazing quality. 2 thumbs up. I love this. Then I have the infamous Subculture palette. I love this one. This is kind of one of those palettes you either love it or you hate it, but I think it's a really fun, grungy color story for the fall. It's a bit of a challenging palette. Not only is the formula a little bit tricky to work with, but the color combos themselves, you have to kind of put on your color theory hat and, you know, make sure that the shades you're pairing together are not going to look muddy when you blend them out together. But I have a lot of fun with this palette. I think it's great for fall. I also like that there's some like brighter colors in here, like the coral, the like greenish gold. I just think it's a lot of fun. Next we have my favorite Anastasia palette, Norvina. This is so beautiful. I feel like it's a little bit underrated. Very romantic, kind of ethereal color story. The top half is completely shimmer and the bottom half is matte. And these shimmers are incredible, even better than a lot of the shimmers in like Soft Glam and Sultry. They're just so intense and beautiful. They do have a little bit of fallout, so you just have to make sure to only apply a little bit of them because they are just very foiled and pigmented, you don't need much. If you over apply them, you will get crazy fallout. But I think this is a great palette for year round. I used to love it a lot in the spring, but now I also have come to appreciate it as a great fall palette too. I mean, especially with this like burgundy shade, the mustard color. I love this. I used to think that this wasn't a very cohesive palette, but now I realized I was wrong. This palette is incredible. I love it. If I ever lost this or it expired, I would probably buy another one immediately because it's just that good. It's so pretty. Then we have Soft Glam. I'm actually currently doing a 1 week one palette with this one, which should be up early next week, so stay tuned for that. But this is another classic. I feel like it's very true to the name. You can get a lot of beautiful soft glam looks with this. It's more warm toned, although there are some cooler tones in here, like the Dusty Rose. I honestly think this palette is more versatile than you might think just looking at it, especially because of that Dusty Rose and like the pink. You can get a very rosy look, or you can get a very like brown or burnt orange kind of look. It's really pretty. If you are into these colors, I do recommend it. But just know it does have a lot of browns in it. So if you already have a lot of browns in your collection, or you don't really wear browns that often, you might find it a little bit too brown. All right, coming over here to my Urban Decay palettes, I have 2 of these. First up is my beloved Stoned Vibes. I love this one. This was a limited edition palette last year. I really wish that this weren't limited edition because it is beautiful. It's mainly these beautiful like sparkly, glittery, foiled shimmers. They're kind of that cushiony, squishy texture similar to ColourPop Super Shock shadows, or even like the Flower Jungle Lights palette, that kind of like not quite cream but not quite powder shadow. I think that the mattes in here are also great. They complement the shimmers really nicely, but the shimmers are definitely where this palette shines for me. I love the shades Tiger's Eye and Vibes. Those 2 beautiful lid shades. You've got like this grungy, like greenish red color, a royal blue, a green. It's just very versatile, beautiful. They really did a good job with this one. The packaging also is stunning. Then I have Naked Wild West. This one I just feel kind of so-so about. I did a 3 looks 1 palette with this one, as well as Stone Vibes, when it came out, and it's fine. I like this color story. I do think it's really pretty for fall. I just feel like the shimmers are kind of lackluster, and that's what I've noticed between I've tried 3 Naked palettes so far. This is the only one that I still own, but I feel like Naked palette shimmers, they're just okay. I feel like they could be better, especially for the price. Especially seeing what they were capable of with Stoned Vibes. I just feel like these shimmers are so average. Like, they're not bad, but they don't blow me out of the water either, and I'm just like, I'm a shimmer fanatic, so I need the shimmers to be like amazing. But you know, it's fine. I do like it. I think you can get some really fun looks with it. It actually is a lot more versatile than you might think just looking at it. So yeah, check out my 3 looks 1 palette if you want to see more on this one, but I do think it's a nice palette. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's just not like, it doesn't stand out to me or anything. This is one of my all-time favorite palettes, another one that has been discontinued. They replaced this with a smaller version of it, but they only kept like 2 of the original shades, which annoyed me a little bit. But this is the Ather Beauty Rose Quartz Crystal Gemstone palette. Ooh, I love this palette so much. Very cool toned, a lot of rosy tones in here. This is just such an easy, effortless palette to use, especially if you have fair skin. I think you would really like this. The only thing I'll say is these middle shades, they're kind of like toppers. I would recommend wearing those over the NYX Glitter Primer because that really makes them pop. That's when you can really bring out a lot of the dimension and the duochrome-ness of those. But on their own, I feel like they're a little lackluster. That was the one thing that I didn't like about this palette, but I love the way the shades work together. The mattes in here are more blendable than any mattes you will ever try. Like, they are the definition of blendable. They basically blend themselves. It's kind of crazy. So yeah, I love this. The new version looks pretty. I haven't tried it yet, but I don't know. I just think this version was so perfect. So I'm kind of sad that it's no longer sold. And then also from Ather, I have their Ametrine Quad, which is a great way to like try some Ather shadows if you don't want to spend the money on the larger ones. But I love this. It's like a bronzy rose gold palette. It looks similar to the E.L.F. Rosewater Quad, but I actually think it's very different. It's kind of a warmer, more saturated version of that. It's a little bit deeper. Yeah, I love this. I love either putting like that rose gold or this bronze all over my lid. once again, a very easy palette. This doesn't have any of those like duochrome topper-ish shades in it, so the two shimmers in here perform great just like on their own with no glitter primer, so really enjoy that. So those are all of my kind of like mainstream-ish palettes. The rest of them are all more like indie brands. So we'll start up here. This is the Shared Planet Polar Bear palette. Love this one, although I did share recently. I feel like I haven't used this in a very long time, especially considering how much I like it and have raved about it. To me, this is just a very wintry palette, but it's a great cool tone palette. The shimmers in here are so pretty, especially, sorry, my monitor is mirrored, so I keep pointing at the wrong colors, but especially this shade right here. It's like a duochrome, icy, bluey purple color. It's so gorgeous, so unique. My favorite look to do with this is to put that on my lid and like the gray in the crease. I just feel like those make such a gorgeous pair. So yeah, there's again a lot you can do with this. It's also got like this berry shade in it, so you could go a little bit more like pinky red with it if you wanted. Yeah, really fun palette. Highly recommend it. And it's a great company. They like donate to wildlife organizations. All right, then I have two palettes from Estate Cosmetics. I wasn't sure whether to put this in the drugstore or the high-end category, but these palettes are $30 each, so I think they belong in the high-end because that's certainly not a drugstore price. But first, I love both of these. I unexpectedly got these in PR this year, and I was actually really impressed, especially because a lot of Estate products I haven't been that impressed by. But this is Mystic Forest. I mean, what a beautiful fall grungy palette, kind of similar to Subculture in some ways. I mean, I can go ahead and compare them for you side by side here. If you weren't able to get your hands on Subculture, but you wanted something kind of similar, the Estate one is really beautiful. These two metallic shades, these have a ColourPop Super Shock texture to them. Now, I have found that these can kind of crease easily, which is the only downside of this palette, but if I set my eyelid primer with a powder, that definitely helps a lot, but just be aware of that if that sounds like something that would annoy you. But I love this shade down here. It's a great, just all over the lid, kind of glittery, metallic, like olivey gold color. And I like these kind of like mac and cheese shades. I just think they're fun, a little bit different. I also think the packaging on this is stunning. So yeah, I feel like Estate is a brand you don't hear about very often. They did do a collab with Bailey Sarian, so you may have heard of them from that, but I really like this palette. And then the other one I have is Hidden Garden, which is also beautiful. I feel like this has kind of similar colors to the Flower Jungle Lights palette, but it's just, you know, more of like your traditional shadow texture. This doesn't have any of those Super Shock-like shadows in it, so no creasing issues with these at all. It has 4 mattes and 5 shimmers, whereas Mystic Forest only has 2 shimmers and the rest are mattes. But really fun. I feel like this is a great kind of springy color story. You've got like a really pretty like cranberry red in here, a green, a pink. Like, I just think this is such a fun palette, and I have really been impressed by the quality as well. So, I mean, if you like either of these color stories, I don't think you can go wrong. I do feel like $30 is a little bit steep, especially because most of their products are more drugstore priced, but maybe wait for a sale. But I mean, I do think they're really nice, and it's a nice like smaller indie Canadian brand, so I think that's a cool brand that I feel like they deserve more love. Then I have the Clarity Cosmetics So Mermazing palette. This is all pastel, and it's half duochrome shimmers and half mattes. And I did also a 3 looks 1 palette with this palette, so I feel like a broken record, but again, any looks I've done with any of these palettes will be listed down below if you want to see them in action. I feel like I am so set on pastels. I have several pastel palettes in my collection now, so I don't think I need to buy any more like ever again. I feel like this palette, the mattes did not blow me away. You definitely need the NYX Jumbo Pencil in Milk under these or something similar to help them pop, because especially like these bottom 3 mattes are very, very desaturated and light. So like even on my fair skin, it's kind of hard to get them to show up, which is also just kind of an issue with pastels across the board. But I don't know, I feel like I have better luck with like the BH Cosmetics pastels and the Lost in LA palette, or even some ColourPop pastels that I have. So I was a little bit bummed out by this, especially for the price, but the shimmers in here are stunning. They're all duochrome. They're very kind of flaky, so it's another one similar to like Morvina where you need to only use like a tiny tap of it because you're just going to get a ton of fallout otherwise. but I feel like even for the shimmers alone, this palette was kind of worth the price, and Clarity is a Black-owned brand. I also have quite a few of their singles that I really like. And finally, I have the Billie Beauty Eyes of India palette. This one I've had in my collection for over 2 years now at this point, and this is a beautiful 10-pan, very rich colors in here, a lot of jewel tones, but some really great neutrals as well. I love this palette in the fall. Like, these burnt oranges are really pretty in the crease, and then like the gold on the lid, I just think that makes the most beautiful fall look. Yeah, I really enjoy this palette, and I say this every time, but if you haven't heard me say it yet, but these bottom 3 middle shades, the purple, blue, and green, you have to use with a wet brush, which can be kind of annoying. I wish they would just not require a wet brush, but when you do use a wet brush, they are beautiful and so pigmented. So I really enjoy this, and this is a Indian woman-owned brand, so another really cool one to check out if you're interested. Also, I just think the packaging is so pretty. And all the shade names, they give you a little definition and pronunciation guide on the back, which I just think is such a cool little touch. So yeah, I really like this palette. So those are all of my eyeshadow palettes. I do feel like my palette collection has grown like steadily over the years, but I'm still very happy with the amount that I have. I feel like I'm able to use all of them and rotate through them, and yeah, I just love eyeshadow palettes. So I hope you enjoyed seeing all my palettes and hearing a little bit about each one. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you've not already. I'd love to see you again soon. My channel is really all about keeping a curated collection and using what I have, so love to see you again soon. Hopefully I'll talk to you again very soon in my next video. Bye!